Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of r/PettyRevenge. In today's episode, ruining a wedding reception for fun and profit. I ruined my boss life. I accidentally scammed a scammer. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. Ruining a wedding reception for fun and profit. When I was 13, so 8 years ago, my dad remarried after divorcing my mom 4 years before. Before the divorce, his fiancée had been his mistress. My mom is completely better off without him, and ignoring the fact that I wouldn't exist, I don't think she should have married him in the first place. Even if I think my parents weren't a good match, that's no excuse to cheat on your wife. This woman was vile in all sorts of ways. She constantly belittled me, made fun of the fact I needed to take pills for my mental illness, despite being a pharmacist. I don't get it either, and was generally awful to me and my siblings. But she was a decade younger than my dad and reasonably hot, so he didn't give a shit how she treated us. The one time he actually listened to us about her is when they were thinking of having a baby, and my brother said he'd ask our mom to sue for full custody of us if they did. So anyway, they got married. I was a bridesmaid, cause she had no real friends. The other two bridesmaids were her sister and my sister. My brother was the best man, cause she didn't like my dad's best friend. He and my dad still don't talk to this day, even though the guy was like an uncle to me as a little kid. It was a wedding, everything went normally. But at the beginning of the reception, before the first dance, we were taking pictures in front of a chocolate fountain, looking like the happy family we never were and would never be. I'm on the autism spectrum and have a problem maintaining eye contact. This extends to looking at a camera. So when we had to retake a photo because I wasn't looking, she leans down and whispers something in my ear. I'm not going to repeat it, but it involved the R word. I don't like saying it. Anyway, I kinda snapped and decided she was gonna pay for this. No one noticed, or at least no one called me out, when I started slowly moving the chocolate fountain towards the edge of the table. When it got to the edge, it makes contact with the back of that pure white wedding dress and slowly drips down. By the time she notices, it looks like she shit herself. But for all anyone else knows, this was an accident. She has no spare dress, and that stain is not coming out. So first dance, cutting the cake, speeches, everything, this woman has what looks like a shit stain on the back of her dress. It was a small revenge, but it was so worth it. What's supposed to be the happiest day of this stupid woman's life, and she's gonna remember that stain every time she thinks about it. They never did get the stain out. And nobody knew it was me. Until now, I guess. Hi family, if you're reading this. Susie, you're a cunt and you deserve that chocolate stain. Oh. I wish I could have done something like that to my stepmother when she married my father, but I wasn't invited. That shows you what a stand-up person she is. It wasn't like it was a no-kids wedding. I'm not sure if it was, but I was in my 20s. So, excuse me while I daydream how good it would have been. Got a mean smile on my face. It's never too late to throw molten chocolate at the woman. Anyone who uses that word, let alone whispers it to a child, deserves that and so much more. I'm sorry she treats you like that, OP. P.S. Your revenge is fantastically malicious. I knew I would be wearing a big white dress. I knew there would be children present. I made sure not to order a chocolate fountain. I can't understand why anyone would have one. This doesn't sound so much petty to me as fully deserved karma. Such a wonderful woman. Especially when calling a child such a disgusting word in a hateful way. I hope that stain was caught on camera somehow, because then she'd be sure to never forget it. That is, until she eventually burns the photos after leaving your father, because that sounds like something she'd do. I ruined my boss life. A few years ago, I worked for a couple of months in a pastry shop. To work there, my boss promised me 8 hours a day except Mondays, half day, and Thursdays, closed, and €700 a month, obviously all off the books. Although I had some resentment about working illegally, I accepted anyway because I needed some money. The first day of work, I was in there for 11 hours. From 5:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. and then from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. I thought it was normal since it was my first day, even if in reality some doubts came to me right away because all the others had been there as much as me, and for them it was certainly not the first day. The situation continued to be this, hours ranging from 10 to sometimes 13 hours a day. Furthermore, for 2 weeks in a row, on Monday, the day on which we were only supposed to work in the morning, we instead worked with the schedules of the other days. At the end of the month, I asked for my well-deserved salary and my boss got angry telling me that I was only thinking about money when in reality I hadn't even asked him to pay me for the multiple hours of overtime. He then told me that he would pay everyone at the end of the first week of the following month. The following day, after working as usual for 11 hours, at the end of the shift he called me aside telling me that since I had been presumptuous I had to show up for work on Thursday even though it was my day off. Obviously I got angry and replied that I had worked much longer hours than those agreed and that I would not show up for work on my day off, and so I did. Thursday came and I didn't show up, ignoring hundreds of calls from my boss and his wife. The next day, I showed up for work regularly and was severely reprimanded and then sent home for bad behavior. He told me that we would meet on Sunday to give me the money and then I didn't have to show up again, which I already wanted to do. So Sunday arrived and showed up with €300, telling me that I had done little this month and that I hadn't been respectful towards him and his business. I got very angry and also went to call my father who was waiting for me in the car. The two almost came to blows. So I took my father and we left saying it wasn't over there. I kept in touch with some of my colleagues, some even over 18, with whom I had established a good relationship and who also worked illegally. They told me that, the next day, he had badmouthed me saying that I was a person without any form of respect and dignity. In Italy we say una cosa inutile. They had witnessed the scene the previous Friday and were speechless. They thought I had to do something and not let me walk on my head like this. And they were right. So I decided to do something that no one has ever had the courage or the will to do, or rather go to finance to denounce the fact that he made most of his employees work illegally and that he exploited them by underpaying them. Obviously not alone, but with my colleagues, also tired of being exploited, to support me. So we decided on a day and time for a pop check and waited. The agreed day was Saturday morning from 9 to 10, the day and time when there was usually more workload. It goes without saying that, contrary to what is thought of in Italy, sometimes justice works, and that day finance with a surprise check discovered the whole situation and immediately closed the business. Subsequently, the owner as well as my former boss was investigated and sentenced to I don't remember how many years in prison. The business was seized and now his family is having to pay more than €1 million in tax evasion for other reasons related to false receipts and other things that I don't quite understand. I'm from a similar country, so I believe you. I know everyone from the US/UK and even more organized and strict parts of Europe will have trouble understanding this, but it's super common where we are from. When I left my home country, one of the first huge shocks to me was that no one was trying to screw me over financially in the new place I moved to. It's just done differently in some places, guys. There's good odds what OP is saying is true. I'm in the US, and people definitely still try to screw us over here. It can be a bit less common, but it definitely still happens. It just depends on where you are, and who you work for. It's most common with small businesses. It's happened to me. Pro tip: if a lot of people know you're a criminal and can easily prove it, don't piss them off. You may be entitled to actually get your pay from the settlement. Don't know how it works there, but it's worth taking this to a lawyer who knows both Italian and EU regulations. Technically, the Italian regulations got to comply with the EU ones. Bothering with the EU regulations is generally a waste of time and energy. I accidentally scammed a scammer. I had a $1,500 item on eBay once, and someone bought it. I was on top of things, so I shipped it out the same day. The next day, the person messaged me saying to send it to a different address than what was on their account. I knew that scam, but I had already sent it. I expected them to try to get their money back, so I went to the post office and filled out the form to recall the item. A few days later, I had it back and put it up for sale again. I kept my eye on the scammer's account, waiting for them to claim that they never got the item, and one day saw that they deleted their account, and I got to keep the money. I ended up getting $3,000 for that thing. Thanks for the extra money, scammer. I really hope that was the scammer's money, rather than the money of another of their victims. If it was a victim's money, they probably got that money back. Only one out anything is PayPal or the bank. One time I sold an amp on eBay for $1,400. It got stuck in Canadian customs forever, so the insurance paid out. It also then got delivered. So I got paid twice for the same item. I did tell the insurance and they said this claim has already been closed. I didn't push it any further. It's a nice chunk of change for you and me, too much of a hassle for the insurance company to bother with. It would likely cost them more than $1,400 to reclaim the money and process it through their systems. I'd keep that $1,500 on standby. Sooner or later someone will be looking for it, most likely through eBay. Especially since the buyer is not protesting a $1,500 loss. But scamming a scammer is a win-win. This happened almost 10 years ago, so I think I'm safe. I did keep the money on hand for some time though, just in case. Filled out the form to recall the item. Why have I never heard of this before? Maybe you have and you don't recall? I think there's a form for that. I ordered a Total Gym once when they first started getting advertised on TV. I live in Canada and this was the 90s. Cross-border shipping was even more awful than it is now, and I don't think Chuck Norris had properly prepared for the costs and delays. Anyway, about 2 months pass and it still hasn't arrived, so I call to see what's going on, but they have zero tracking info and don't even know if they shipped it yet. But they promise it should arrive any day now. Another month goes by and it still hasn't arrived, and they don't have any more info than last month, so I tell them to cancel the order and refund my credit card, which they do. So I am somewhat satisfied with the situation even if I never received my order. About a week after my return was processed, a Total Gym arrived at my place. About 2 months after that, a second one arrived. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and we will see you in the next video.